Hello and welcome to this episode of Focus On. I'm Zanele Morrison. The Mining in Motion Summit 2025 will take place in Accra in Ghana, centered around the theme, Driving Sustainable Mining and Local Growth for Global Impact. The event will explore how Africa can utilize its resources for global influence while striving to encourage responsible and innovative ASM practices, policy reforms, and international cooperation in Ghana. Joining me for more on this and mining governance is the expert, Charles Kwarteng Antwi. Charles, thank you so much for joining me. And again, we've come at a point where we now need to have a look at mining as a whole, the opportunity that it brings to the continent, and Ghana is hosting us. What are your key highlights and key conversations that you believe are important to hold within this conference?
Thank you very much, Zanele. Like you rightly mentioned, I am Charles Kwarteng Antwi, a co-director of Ashanti Green Initiative. And today we're happy to be here to engage with you on the upcoming Mining in Motion Summit. I think that this summit is unique in itself, in that it's one of the premier summits where you're having a figure like the Tumfosa Tutu, the Santihene of Ghana, in collaboration with the government of Ghana, spearheading this initiative, which is not something you often see. So it's for us, it's a really unique convening in that regard. In terms of leveraging, our resources for global impact, I think that it's important that we consider a few things. One, that Africa is very rich in natural resources, rightly so. As a continent we are blessed with lithium, oil, cobalt, and gold. And these form some of the most strategic precious materials that the world depends on today. So I think that the more important question isn't necessarily on what we have, it is what we are doing with what we have. And for decades, Africa has positioned itself as a raw export continent, and most of our materials, precious materials, are processed abroad, with the real value and wealth, eventually not returning to the continent. I think that this is something that must change, especially in a time where there's a shift towards sustainability and ethical sourcing. For us, sustainability is not optional. If we do want to leave a legacy, mining stakeholders must respect the land, the culture, and the next generation. And Ashanti Green Initiative really believes that Africa has the opportunity to do so through the summit, not just to catch up, but to be a thought leader, especially when it comes to gold. And really, this is what Mining in Motion 2025 is intent on doing.
Now, one of the most critical aspects of most conferences like this one is the financial investments and the investors coming and having a look at the opportunities provided for them. How are you seeing the potential or the attendees, the uptake on them being present and visible? Your thoughts on some of the amount of investment that is possible just from a summit like this?
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a very, very important and critical question. For convening of this nature, you're having organizational leaders, industry leaders, and all stakeholders, really, not just in Africa, but beyond, partaking in this summit. And so you're gathering the finest minds, you're having everybody who really can speak to what we can do to make our space our mining space much, much better. So there would be a lot of conversations that will touch on how we can harness our natural resources to generate the needed investment to bolster this initiative that we're looking at doing. Let's not forget that the main focus really is about formalization and traceability. And Africa holds over 30% of the world's mineral resources. Undoubtedly, but we play a very limited role in the value chain. And this is largely owing to the mining that we practice in Africa. So we are more exporters of the raw materials with little to no value integration. And gold mining in Africa, we need to appreciate that it's not just a commodity for Africans. There's a lot of history. It's culture, it's identity, it's many communities. And when I talk about communities, for them, it's about survival. So gold is deeply woven in our traditional economies, especially when we're talking about artisanal small scale mining. And we believe that we need to move away from the extractivism model to community integration.
So I'd like us to dive a little bit deeper into that, because in order to participate in the full value chain of mining, as you're saying, and to ensure that it's not just extractive mining, but that we are building on the value to communities by processing and being more involved within the value chain, who is partnering with us on this? What kind of solutions do you think will come to the fore or are coming to the fore in the mining industry, so that communities are evolving into different parts of the mineral value chains that are mined in their communities?
Thank you, Zanella. I really appreciate this question because this is one of the questions that the conference is seeking to answer. Mining in Motion would be an opportunity to highlight many governance frameworks. There would be lessons to learn from many parts of the continent in terms of the fine mines and knowledge gathering that would be going on at the conference. It's important to note that for Ashanti Green Initiative in itself, we cannot implement policies. That would be the mandate of the government and regulators alike. But what we're doing is allowing all relevant stakeholders to be at the table to have the conversations that matter. So approaching this from a multi-stakeholder dimension, and this would have some advocacy, like you mentioned, on legal pathways for some small-scale miners to operate safely and responsibly. I think one of the things that we need to be mindful of is not the fact that artisanal mining is solely illegal, but there's a large chunk that is informal, and the questions need to be asked and answered as to how we want to move them from an illegal, informal fold to a formal one. Also, there can be advocacies around regional harmonization of mining standards so that we have a united front, and we're able to have better pricing for the resources that we produce. So questions around whether that is feasible, what are the pros and cons. The summit would give us the opportunity to really elucidate on a lot of these things. Also, fiscal incentives for companies that are investing in sustainability and low carbon beneficiation. But then again, it's important that our role in this is clear. We are a platform to facilitate that dialogue and to ensure that any roadmap that emerges is homegrown and culturally relevant to the African context.
My appreciation for summits and the conversations that the summit is holding has grown over the years because we have seen change year on year. But we're also having to hold conversations that we would not have were it not for these summits. Things like innovation coming into the context. And also, I saw that you're hosting a conversation or the India coming in with the metaverse concept. So some exciting things coming. Maybe you can just lean into how we're lifting up new ways of doing mining.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that we live in a world that is technologically led. And so such innovations are important in every facet of our life. And that includes also the mining space, especially if you look at what the mining space in Africa is dealing with currently, is bewildered with a lot of environmental concerns. And one of the key things we are trying to do is to make sure that the model that we are able to together engage and build on would be one that drives towards environmental stewardship. So you're looking at, in terms of traceability, what can you do? Blockchain and digital systems that can help us track gold from mine up until they're sold. Payments can be done via mobile platforms. And these integrations are things that are currently not too prevalent in the continent. So we're gleaning on the various industry leaders that would be available to open up the conversation on what are the various innovations that we can look at. I think a major concern for Africa is also the impact to the environment. So how can we use innovation and technology to ensure that our mining space is one that is environmentally friendly and sound and ethically sourced and responsibly mined? So you can talk about, for example, phasing out of mercury. What technologies are at play that Africa can really leverage and take advantage of to ensure that we are able to manage our mining space in a very sustainable manner?
And then I think also in terms of the amount of development that's happened in the mining sector in the different countries that you are bringing together. You're bringing together South Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, Zambia. So many countries that when you look at them individually are doing very different, incredible things, sometimes the same. How does knowledge sharing take place so that as a continent we are moving collectively towards improving the mining sector, especially the developments happening within the gold and other minerals?
I think that the key is in exactly what Ashanti Green Initiative is doing. We need to move towards homegrown, African led platforms uh, that are critical to our future. We're not just implementing policy, but creating the space for the voices, taking that multi stakeholder approach that would allow for various stakeholders who have never been brought to the fore to have these conversations. I think that that would be the key to ensuring that we're properly capitalizing on the knowledge share. So there would be a lot of sessions that would give us the opportunity to think deeply, gleaning on some of the efforts that are ongoing in various jurisdictions. There would be opportunity for a lot of questions and clarifications. And then there would be quite a number of networking sessions. And our hope is that at the end of it all, we're able to center around a roadmap that would we can propose as a way to proceed going forward.
You know, when a conversation is engaging and there's so much to unearth, time goes by so quickly. Can you believe we've come to the end of the time allocated? So we have to wrap up this episode of Focus On. To my guest, thank you so much, mining governance expert Charles Kwarteng Antwi. And from me, Zanele Morrison, I have to say goodbye and I'll catch you on the next episode of Focus On.